Welcome to this week's live stream. Let me see here. I'd like to congratulate Rick. He's on his way to San Miguel de Allende. Great to hear, Rick. Great to hear that news that you're on your way. Uh, Welcome to Gringos Are Us. Also, mentioning Gringos Are Us, they just put out the video of our get together that we had here in San Miguel de Allende. So if you have a chance, go over to their YouTube channel and check it out. You'll get to see the video of our YouTube get together. Welcome, Stephanie. Welcome, Blaine and Terry. Welcome, and my beautiful wife is in the room too, Yami. Um, I'd like to welcome you all to this week's live stream. I know I've been offline for 2 weeks. I'm going to kind of explain what's been going on in my world so that you guys can know more or less what's going on. Next Sunday, we won't have a live stream because I'm going to be out of town. But the not this last week, but the week before, as I had told you, my mother-in-law had a stroke, and then my father-in-law also ended up in the hospital. And we finally got them back to Monterrey. It was my wife's birthday. Happy birthday to my beautiful wife. It's already passed, but this is her birthday month. And we went ahead and took a little bit of a vacation after all the stress, and we went out of town. So that's why I wasn't able to do the first week before last's live. And last week's live, we were on our en route back from our vacation. So we just took a week off to celebrate my wife's birthday, and also to take a little bit of a break from all of the stuff that was going on with our personal lives. So that's why I've been away. Next week, I'll be out of town too. I have to go out of town to do some personal business also. So next weekend, I won't have the live, but hopefully we'll be back to normal. I also have to go back to Monterrey. We got my in-laws back to Monterrey, and I'm going back to Monterrey we're going back to visit to make sure they're fine and everything else. But everything else has turned out pretty decent. And given the circumstances, we were very lucky. So that's what I've been up to for the past 2 weeks. Before we get started, I think we got enough in the room. If you have any questions, feel free to. I know that sometimes I do have a subject to go over, but if you have any questions, feel free to. Sometimes we get off track from the main topic, but I would rather you guys ask questions. That's what I'm here for. That's why I've maintained this live stream. On the video front, I am working on one video before I go next week, and possibly two. But the video is going to actually concentrate on a lot of rumors that have been going around. There's been a lot of rumors that because of the political, and I don't discuss politics. This is just rumors that have been going around, and I want to clarify them. I'll go ahead and tell you what the rumors are right now. And I can tell you what the answer is going to be in the video, but I'm going to kind of explain. I do know that there's been some tension between the United States and Mexico, especially with this talk of tariffs, also with the immigration policy that the United States has had. One of the concerns, or what's been going viral on TikTok, in Facebook, I've had to answer countless Facebook posts, is that all of a sudden, apparently, there's this rumor that the Mexican president is going to retaliate against the United States government by requiring visas. Now, for those of you that don't know, Mexican citizens, when they go to the United States, are required to have a visa, an actual visa, and the visa. The Mexicans need a visa. Then they get a permission when they go in. So in other words, they present their visa, say, I want to visit if it's more than 72 hours, I believe, or it's within the border. If you go inland in the border, you have to get a permission, and they call it a 994, and then you have to return it when you're coming back. Mexico has never required a visa for American citizens that are coming to Mexico. This came to my attention not only with a lot of the stuff on Facebook and TikTok. I didn't realize it was so viral on TikTok, but apparently they're saying that the Mexican president has now implemented or directed the exterior relations to require visas of all American citizens coming here, which would complicate things because it would mean you'd have to go to a Mexican consulate, excuse me, like when you apply for residency. And not only would you have to go to a Mexican consulate to get the visa, then you would have to come in. It wouldn't be so easy. Now, all you have to do is come in and you get this thing called an FMM, and that's your tourist permit for up to 180 days. That is a rumor. The Mexican president never said that. There hasn't been any concrete plans to do that. There hasn't been any intention to do that. And what I want to explain to individuals that want to visit Mexico or want to live in Mexico, you need to understand that there's a difference between the political posture of both countries. Right now, yes, the political posture is somewhat tense. And yes, President of the United States has said that we're going to do tariffs, and then Mexico said we're going to do tariffs back, and then, but there have been some inroads as far as cooperating, and also not only about the inroads, but one of the things that the president has made very clear is that regardless of what tensions between Mexico and the United States, you can be rest assured that this will not affect American citizens living in Mexico or visiting Mexico. Whatever policies are made on the Mexican side, on the U.S. side, those are fights at a higher level. What I used to say in the government is way above our pay grade. So don't worry about it. I know that there's been also rumors that they're going to start deporting Americans. They're going to start deporting U.S. citizens, or the thing that I do have to mention is deportation of Americans that are here illegally in Mexico is nothing new. It's been happening for years. I've done several videos on it. As a matter of fact, I've even done videos on how you need to carry your travel documents with you all the time, or your card. I've been checked many times in Cancun, and those are so. Are they deporting foreigners? Yes, they do all the time. If you get caught here in Mexico without, an expired FMM or without legal status here, you will be detained and returned to your country. Some people have been detained, or if you don't have your documents with you, you could be detained maybe up to the whole day until they figure out that you're here legally, not illegally. Or if they can't determine that you're here legally, then they will send you back, and they will detain you as long as it takes. Some people have been detained for months in immigration detention centers awaiting to be sent back home. This is nothing new. This is not a result of the new administration coming in, or the new presidential administration in Mexico coming in, and this is not a result of the U.S. president coming in. This is a result. Not a result. This is something that's been happening for years. It's nothing new. Now, probably more than 5 years ago, it was not a big deal if you were here without papers, and it was kind of a unwritten rule that Mexico didn't really bother you. But in the last 3 to 4, maybe 5 years, Mexico has cracked down on individuals that aren't here legally. Now, here's the thing. Mexico has also implemented programs, for example, the regularization program, for many of those that couldn't meet the financial solvency requirements, for many of those that were running to the border every 180 days to try to get their permission because they couldn't meet the financial solvency requirement. Regularization, Mexico said, don't worry about it. We'll help you. So, you need to be on a stance that Mexico, and here's the other thing that I always say, I don't know, like I said, I don't discuss politics. I'm not going to say which direction the United States is going, but if it ever gets to the point, there's a lot of talk about political reprisal. There's a lot of talk about revenge. There's a lot of talk about, hey, Klepper, how's it going? Anna, I forgot to mention you too. Hi, Anna. But there's a lot of talk about possibly if you speak bad about the United States, that it's going to become, I don't know, a police state or whatever. I'm not saying that's going to happen. All I'm saying is one thing to keep in mind about Mexico is more than likely Mexico, if you're running from the United States for political reasons, the next step I see is not restricting Americans. I actually see them accepting a lot of the Americans as refugees, if that political refugees. That's if it ever gets to that point. But like I've said before, we don't know what's going to happen. I don't like to discuss politics, but what I want to do right now is I want to assure you that trust me, it's not going to be the same way. Yes, you might have some, I don't know, public sentiment against Americans here, but that's always been what I mean by against Americans or against Canadians. We've had in Mexico City a lot of people complain, but they're not complaining about, I don't know, the policies of that country. They're complaining because a lot of neighborhoods have been taken, what everybody's called gentrification. And I've gone over this gentrification thing before. Gentrification happens everywhere. It happens in the United States. Everybody moved out of California and they're moving to Texas. That's gentrification of those places in Texas. It doesn't have to happen from one country to another. So yes, you do get locals complaining here and there, but more than anything else, Mexico, they totally separate politics from your personal relationships. And that's exactly what I'll tell you right now, what the Mexican president is doing is saying our government level relationship with the United States is not going to affect the people living here on a personal level. So that has been a commitment by the Mexican president. I can tell you right now that living here for the period of time I have, that's the way it works. I actually even know of one individual who has gotten political asylum here. Actually, it was even to be honest with you, I believe it was a ridiculous case, but it goes to show you that Mexico is willing to take those people in, and they've taken a lot of political asylum people from other countries. So Mexico is kind of a country of acceptance. And so we need to remember that. So I'm going to say that's enough of that. I'm just going to condense it in a video for those of you that don't want to look through a 1 hour live. I know a lot of you like to come on to the live so we can discuss things, but I will get to the subject at hand. One of the things that I want to go over is getting a ticket in Mexico. Traffic violations or parking violations. Let's see here. Gringos Are Us. Before I go there, let's see. I like to try to take care of these comments as we start to. We did actually have a subscriber ask about getting a tip as a Mexican citizen. Not sure that would even work. Actually, Gringos Are Us, there is a way of getting a tip as a Mexican citizen. If you live in the United States as a Mexican citizen and you're a permanent resident, Mexican citizens are allowed to get a tip on their U.S. vehicle. It's for Mexican citizens living outside of the United States, outside of Mexico. They can't get a tip just because they actually the tip process, they'll ask them for their resident card and say, show proof that you're living in the United States, which is your resident card. And it is proof because you can't live outside the United States for more than 180 days. So therefore, having a resident card is your proof. And you show it to the Mexican officials, and you're able to get a tip. But that's an exception. That's the only exception for Mexican citizens right now. Well, apart from the free zones, is for Mexican citizens that are driving in a U.S. vehicle. That's the only option right now. Or if someone else gets the tip legally and they're your family member, your husband or your wife, and you're driving the vehicle and you're a permanent resident or a Mexican citizen. Yeah. That was the only way. Yeah, that's the only way you need a tip. Now, I do know that There are a lot of dual nationals that will get an FMM and get a tip coming in. Uh, they're technically not supposed to do that. If you're a dual national by birth, they can't take away your citizenship, but they can fine you a very large fine. It's a very common practice on the border where they bring their U.S. passport and check in like a U.S. citizen, but technically the law says they have to. If you're a Mexican citizen, dual citizen, you have to check in. When you come into Mexico, you have to do all your business in Mexico as a Mexican citizen. Now, if you're naturalized, you can lose your citizenship by doing that. Let me see here. My name has a question too. I know some expat U.S. bank accounts were blocked or canceled for not having a physical address using virtual mailbox. I'm using an old address. How do you guys go about it? Friends or relatives? My name, what I do is I have, as a matter of fact, I'm going to the States to go get my mail pretty soon, but I have someone that receives my mail in the United States. I don't use a traveling mailbox. I do know that banks, if you don't have a physical address in the U.S., they kind of get kind of weirded out because of the money laundering laws and stuff like that. And so that's how I do it. I have now, if I get my new credit card or my new debit card, I have them DHL it or FedEx it here. I don't have my contact in the US it's my son. I don't have my son send me anything that's of value, because if not, it'll get tied up in customs and you will get charged for it. So if I order anything, I go and I pick it up. And we do go to Monterrey, which is 2.5 hours from the border. So sometimes we can go. I can have stuff sent to I have family in McAllen too, that I can have stuff sent there. In my personal situation, I don't have that issue where I do know there's a lot of people that have that issue of traveling mailboxes. I know Gringos R Us. Let me see. I think they use a traveling mailbox and it's worked very, very well. Hey, the best is in Mexico. Hey, Terry, how you guys doing? The best is in Mexico. I suggest you go over and watch their YouTube channel. They're just starting out. Any kind of support you could give them, I would greatly appreciate it. Let me see. Okay. My name, we dropped the letters PMB from our postal address, and it has worked so far. We just use it as a suite number. Yeah, I have no. Okay, you have a travel. We do have a, yes, Gringos R Us does have a traveling mailbox. If you want to mention which service you use, Gringos R Us, that would help maybe. I don't use one. I've looked into them. I actually had a traveling mailbox here in San Miguel. There used to be a service called La Conexión. They've since closed down, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, but we did it for a year and never had anything shipped here. But they have an address in Laredo, Texas, and then they bring the mail down. They would bring the mail down, and they had little post office boxes in the thing. But we never used it. I mean, we were in Monterrey so often, and we had our mail sent to McAllen. As a matter of fact, I even have at one point we were having my brother-in-law and would come down every couple of weekends, and he would just bring the mail down to Monterrey. So we would just pick it up in Monterrey, or have my mother-in-law, father-in-law mail it to us here in San Miguel. Not mail it, but package it to us. And we used to do that even with items that we would order from Macy's or whatever. We would have them bring it down to Monterrey. So I've been very fortunate to have family back in the U.S. and to be kind of back and forth to the point where I can pick up my mail. But that is a little bit of a challenge. I do really. Let me see here. Oh, Traveling Mailbox is the name of the company. Thank you. Gringos R Us. Okay, and Bess's, they have a traveling mailbox and they use anytime mailboxes. And you know what? They will. What's really neat about these mailbox places is they'll even ship you stuff. Like if you need a copy of the letter, you need the original, they'll actually ship it to you. But most of it, they'll scan it for you, and then you can look at your mail, and then virtual mail. Oh, sorry, a virtual mailbox. Okay. Anytime mailbox. Okay. Um, so I do know some states also have issues with that. Um, I know that even, for example, in Texas, you can't use a PO box. You need your physical address um, for driver's license and that type of thing. So I have a little bit of a different situation there. Yeah, they will ship, but they scan everything and then tell them to pitch it or save it. And now here's the thing that I do have to say about shipping stuff or sending stuff to a virtual mailbox. If you're sending mail or and here's the thing, even a credit card, make sure the credit card is not activated. Don't be sending credit cards, FedEx or DHL. As long as it's not activated, like for example, I was going to have my son send me he was going to send me my credit card that I had to have. Actually, it got marked as, you know how they do a charge on your credit card. And then when you say it's fraud or then they have to send you a new credit card, but I'm going to go and pick it up now that I'm going. But the one thing that I stress is don't have the card activated, because if it gets lost, no harm, no foul. You just order another one. And the other thing is FedEx or DHL, don't send it regular mail. The postal service here is almost non-existent. So, and if you send it U.S. mail, it'll get sent to the postal service here, which is pretty much almost non-existent. And I repeat, almost non-existent. I have received things through the mail, but like I said, it's almost non-existent. Let me see here. Alan Hughes, and we will get to the ticket in Mexico, I promise. I'm an American citizen married to a Mexican American dual citizen wife. We want to get property in a coastal beach area. Can my name be on the deed or just her name? Okay, Alan, I'm going to answer your question kind of. I'm going to give you a yes and a no answer. I'm going to give you the yes answer first and how you can accomplish this. If it's on the coast, I will tell you that, yes, you can, but you would have to get a fideicomiso because your name is going to be on it too if you want both your names on the title. The fideicomiso is a trust, and it can be inherited. You can will the trust, and I believe it's for 50 years. And so you get that trust, and then basically the trust owns it, not you personally, because you know the restriction of you being able to own property on the coast. Now, here's the no answer. If you don't want to get a fideicomiso, then you can put it in your wife's name. One of the things that we have done, and I personally done, for example, our house in Monterrey, when we built it, usually you have to get the special permission. We wanted to sign the title right away, so we put it in my wife's name. And basically, you can put in the escrituras that your wife is married to you, and if something happens, it can be willed to you. But I don't know as far as it being willed to you. In other words, here in Mexico, you need to understand that the way it works here in Mexico is that it's a community property country, I guess you might say. So technically, even though the property is in your wife's name, you half own it. It doesn't matter whose name it's in, but you're half owner just by the fact that you guys are married. In other words, even if something happened to your wife and she passed away, then it would go to, now here's the thing, if you have kids, it would go to you, and then it'd be divided amongst the kids too. So you need a will. One of the things, if you do that, probably the best thing to do is a will. For example, if you put in your wife's name and you put the will that if something happens to you, everything goes to your wife. If something and do it here in Mexico because these wills are registered. If you don't have a will, what can happen is you can go through a process called intestado, which means there's no will, but that process can take years. There's some people that are still 30, 40 years later, still trying to settle out a will on property or whatever. So that's the two answers per se. I hope that helps, Alan. That's the best I can do as far as answering that question. So it is a yes and a no, depending on which way you want to do it. You're more protected, I guess you might say, if it's in a trust and it's in both your names. But you are still protected under Mexican law, even if it's under your wife's name. What we did here in Mexico is we register our marriage here in Mexico. You can do that through a notario, and that gives you the same protections or the legal, you're legally married here in Mexico. But it might be some more hoops that you might not want to jump through. It just depends on how you want to do it. Yeah, Anna, Wells Fargo, it wouldn't surprise me if they closed accounts if you didn't have a personal address. Jesse, yes, your credit cards also could get canceled technically. The other reason why they want U.S. for example, a credit card, depending. Let's say you default on that credit card. You live in Mexico, and you could tomorrow say, I don't want to pay it. Well, go ahead and try to track me down. Try to get the money. So the credit card companies, for their security, are going to say, no, I don't want. Now, yes, if you have a salary from the United States, then maybe they could go after that salary and garnishing wages and stuff like that. But they are very, very, now for the banks, it has to do with money laundering. A lot of it has to do with money laundering and making sure that they know where the customer is. It's called a know your customer, KYC, know your customer. And that's, and so hopefully you won't have those issues. What I would look for, Jesse, is a good, solid U.S. address that you can use. The other thing, like I said, they've cracked down a lot on these postal boxes, and well, at one time you couldn't do anything with a PO box because a PO box technically you have to go to the post office to get the address. So a PO box was kind of a way of being anonymous. Then all of these little mail, I don't know. I forgot what you call them, but these little mail places started showing up and saying, oh, well, we're a physical address because we're on Highway 55 in South Dakota. And it looks like a physical address. When you go to the physical address, it's a storefront with a bunch of little mailboxes. And when that started getting very popular, I know that it was popular many years ago. Laws started to kind of change. Banking regulations started to change and started to get more strict. The same thing with, like I said, in Texas, the driver's license. They won't let you use those addresses. This is Ernie. How's your mother-in-law doing? She's doing great. Still without short-term memory, but perfect. She's doing awesome. Given the circumstances, we were very lucky that it happened here. We were very lucky that we got her to the hospital in time. So she's fully functional. She just doesn't remember what happened. And maybe it's for the best that she doesn't remember what happened. And she has a hard time retaining things, short-term memory. But they're very functional. So that's what's really, really a good thing about what that came out, that it wasn't so bad, but she's doing a lot better. She looks a lot better too. So, and Gringos R Us, you've had no problems in the past 2.5 years. And I think if you do it right, so far so good. And then how Gringos R Us said that instead of putting PMB, they put suite, whatever, 901 or 902 or 904 or whatever. And that helps them out. So on the trust, I'm not sure. The fideicomiso is a little bit different. It's a bank trust. you'd have to check into that. I don't know. You're talking more of a living trust, if I'm not mistaken. That I mean, I had that with my father in the house where I willed it. He willed the house to me, but he lived in it. It was called a living trust. I'm not aware of living trusts here in Mexico. The fideicomiso is more of a trust to be able to own land close to the border and close to the I guess you might say the the coast. So I'm not sure on that as far as now you can leave a beneficiary to the bank trust, and that would accomplish pretty much the same thing. You would own it, and if something happened to you, then you would have it in your will. You would have them as a beneficiary on the bank trust, but I would also put it in the will. Steph Life or Steph Life. Okay, I'm struggling with filing my income tax for the first time since I moved to Mexico, just coming to grips with the problem of the whole issue of domicile. Interested in what others have done. I'll tell you what, Steph. There are several people that'll do taxes for expats here in Mexico, or for immigrants, whatever you want to call yourself. There are people that will do foreign taxes. I don't know about I use a U.S. address where we're talking about these traveling mailboxes and that type of stuff, or using an address of somebody that you know. If you have, I don't know if you have the only thing that I would be concerned about is if you were owed a refund. If you have a U.S. bank, whatever U.S. address you're using for that U.S. bank, and you want to have a direct deposit. What I do with my taxes now is I file them, and I do it through TurboTax. I mean, our tax situation is very simple. I've got one source of income, and it gets withdrawn, and I have the same dependents as I always have. So, and I take the standard deduction. So I just go into TurboTax, do my thing, and send it in, and it goes straight into my bank account. But there are some, look up expat taxes or foreign taxes. There are people that specialize in that. Maybe they actually use their own address in their office in wherever they file. They might have a main office in the United States where they can use their address for that. But hopefully that helps. That's the best I can do, Steph, because my personal situation is a little bit different. I know a lot of people have a U.S. address because they have U.S. bank accounts. And I always, I have cut ties in the United States. I don't own anything there anymore. But I still have ties in the sense that I still have bank accounts there. All my credit cards, except with the exception of my Mexican credit card, are all there. I get a U.S. pension from the U.S. government. So I still have my ties to the United States in a sense, even though I don't own anything there. Anna, do you need to have your marriage and birth certificates apostolized if you own property and may die in Mexico? We are permanent. Yes, Anna, I would have your birth certificates and your marriage certificate apostolized. The big thing that's very important on the marriage certificate is that all the names match, because here names are a big deal. The problem that a lot of people run into, especially even with marriage certificates, marriage certificate, if it's apostolized and you have your maiden name, let's say if you took on your husband's name, then your last name is not going to match your names have to match, basically. And if you're a Mexican citizen, your name's usually your name at birth. And that is a problem for a lot of people when they change their names. But if you have your marriage certificate apostolized and you have your full name, if you're a Mexican citizen and you have your full name on that marriage certificate, that should show that you're the same person that's on your passport and everything else. But I would get everything apostolized. But as far as a will, I would still do it here in Mexico. And you can give the notario your apostolized marriage certificate, your apostolized birth certificates, so that they can put together a will for you. I don't remember how much it costs us to do our wills, but it will cost you maybe a couple of thousand pesos. But it's better to have a will here in Mexico, especially when you're trying to settle out property here, because your property could get stuck in what is equivalent to kind of a probate court here for years and years and years and years and years, unless you have a will. And it's very famous. I'll even tell you right now, where my in-laws live in Monterrey. I don't see it here much because this is a newer place. But where my in-laws live, they live in a more established neighborhood that's been around for 50 or 60 years. And there's houses in their neighborhood that are abandoned that can't be sold and can't be used because the person passed away, didn't have a will, and the family's still trying to settle out the will 30 years later or 20 years later. As a matter of fact, even in some cases, the person that inherited the property already passed away. So it even becomes even more of an egregious, not an egregious, but a very long process. Jesse, like I said, probably the best bet. But if you're going to move everything, Jesse, you don't have any problem. When you were talking about not being able to have a U.S. address, if you move all your stuff, your banking, everything over to Mexico, you shouldn't have any issues. Where you're going to have issues without a U.S. address is, for example, yeah, I have Wells Fargo. I have. Like I said, I have my pension check. I have the government needs to know where I'm at. I mean, as far as not necessarily where I'm at physically, but how to get a hold of me if they need to send me mail, my retirement's changed or something's changed. Those are the situations where you're really going to need a U.S. mailbox. If you're pretty much independent, you don't need the U.S. for whatever reason, then you shouldn't have a problem. So let me see here. Okay, Gringos R Us, they used a company out of Mexico City and they were great. And there's a bunch that will advertise on Facebook. I would just make sure that I guess are legit. So let me see. An attorney in Qatar told us if we had our home in trust, no other assets in Mexico, we would not need a Mexican will, only if we had a car or a bank account. And actually, Anna, that is kind of true, but it's kind of, let me put it this way, it's better that you have one. And the best way to make up a will is just to go straight to the notario, especially if you have property. Now, here's the thing. The reason why the attorney was probably telling you that you don't need a will is because if you're going to have your property in trust, it's a bank. It's kind of like a bank account. Okay. I hate to say this. I don't want to put it, but to simplify it, it's kind of like a bank account. If you have a bank account, and even with a bank account, you can leave a beneficiary, okay, here in Mexico. My BBVA is my beneficiary is my wife. So if something happens to me, she automatically, and that is not going, and it's the same thing in the U.S. It doesn't go into probate or any of that family court or whatever, property court or whatever it might be. But here's the issue that and here's the thing. If you list your husband as if you guys are the beneficiary or your kids or whatever, that's not a problem because the bank will hand over the trust to whoever you will it to. Or not will it to, but whoever's the beneficiary. So the beneficiary will take over that trust. The problem that you end up having, Anna, and I would get a will anyway, and this is just for your own peace of mind, is the problem that you can run into is that if someone comes to contest the property, let's say for whatever reason, okay, that, I don't know, the builder didn't do the stuff right or whatever. And all of a sudden, whoever inherited it as a bank, they have the new trust and they have to fight over it, then you're going to have a little bit more of a trouble. The person that's going to inherit is going to have a lot more trouble legally trying to do whatever legal stuff you need to do. Or so I would get a will anyway. And even with a bank account, you don't really need a will because you have a beneficiary. And that will go straight to the beneficiary, whatever you have in the bank account. But that's why they're telling you don't need a will, because the trust is a bank trust, and you're basically you have a beneficiary. But I would do that with the will anyway. And then the other thing too, Anna, that we've discovered, even though we didn't intend to buy a Mexican vehicle, we ended up buying one when we moved here. I even got my temporary residency thinking I was going to bring my U.S. vehicle. The more ingrained you get here in Mexico, the more permanent you get here in Mexico, the more you're going to start owning things here in Mexico. Anything from any kind of property. Or even if you want to start putting your money into investments here, what we have found is the longer we have lived here, the more estranged we've gotten from the United States. And literally 90% of my legal paperwork and legal stuff that I do is now here in Mexico. And I'm talking about legal things like getting license plates for a car, getting a driver's license, all of those things. The longer we've been here, there's a lot of people that go 5 years without getting a driver's license here in Mexico. Next thing you know, I need a driver's license because we just bought a car and I need the driver's license to get the plate. It's a long, or for example, I used this last car we bought. I had to get a plates in Guanajuato, and I didn't have the comprobante de domicilio in my name, and I had to I had to change my Monterrey license to a Guanajuato license, so that could be my proof of that I live at the address, so that I could get my plates. So those are the little things you're going to start finding, and especially if you have a will that's general, that, hey, everything I own here in Mexico goes to so-and-so, you're a lot better off. Yeah, Steph, that TurboTax won't let you, you're not supposed to file your tax. But like I said, I have a U.S. address. So I'm filing as a U.S. in the U.S. So I don't, I don't have that issue. So don't forget. Oh yeah, I have that, but it's not a lot. So technically I don't pay too much taxes on that. So let me go into the discussion at hand. I know that I love to answer questions, and if you have questions, if we don't even get to the subject at hand, that's okay. But I do know that some people will want to get to the subject at hand. I'm going to go into, because there's a big confusion about tickets here in Mexico. My wife just got not a speeding ticket. She ran a red light where she was in the middle of a red light, and they gave her a ticket. And one of the things that kind of brought me to, and I might even do another video on it. That's the second video that I want to do this week, hopefully, if I have some time, because I'm in the process of buying another vehicle, and also we need to get to Monterrey, and then I'm going to be going out of town this weekend, so I don't know if I can get to it. My plate has been very full as far as doing videos, and that's why I want to keep doing these live, so I can keep in contact with you and answer your questions direct, instead of trying to make videos just to answer a question that maybe 1,000 people want to know or whatever. But the one thing that I've noticed on Facebook about tickets is the process here in Mexico is a lot different than maybe back in your home country. And this causes a lot of confusion. I've even seen officers get accused of corruption. Okay. And we're going to go into this in detail, why I say this, because why it's a mistake to all of a sudden just assume corruption. What happens when you get a ticket here in Mexico? what happens when you get a ticket back in your home country? What usually happens, and I'm familiar with the U.S. system, is they put your stuff in a system, and if you don't pay the ticket, then they put an arrest warrant out for you. And then if you let's say you have a bunch of traffic tickets, and then they arrest you, and then you can't get out of jail until you pay your traffic tickets. Well, there's no type of system like that here in Mexico. So what happens? They need some assurance that you're basically going to pay the ticket, okay? And this is where the confusion comes into play. What happens is people get stopped by a cop. Then the cop will say, here's the deal. Here's your ticket. I'm going to take your license. Thank you very much. Okay. And then they're like, oh, the cop took my license. He's trying to get a bribe. No, the cop takes your license because your license goes back to the main office where you pay the fine. And that's the way they make sure that you show up to pay the fine, because you're going to want your license back. Same thing happens with parking violations. As a matter of fact, I was in Cancun and I was reminded of this very, very quickly. And I was reminded of this because they told us when we rented a car in Cancun to be careful where you park. What they will do is they will issue a parking ticket, okay? And when they issue you the parking ticket, they'll take your license plates. Why do they take your license plates? To make sure that, because you're going to want your license plates back, that you go and pay the fine. Okay? So what has happened to a lot of people that I've seen is someone stole my plates. And here's the problem too. Sometimes they'll put the ticket there and the ticket will fly off, and then they'll think, oh my God, someone stole my license plates. Not necessarily did they steal your license plates. The best thing to do, if you park somewhere and you know you parked illegally, or you park somewhere you didn't know, go to where they pay the fines for parking tickets and see if your license plate is there. And more than likely, you will see a parking ticket. Now, most people, and I've seen opinions that this is a highway robbery and this is corrupt, and no, this is the way the system works here in Mexico. For example, when my wife got a ticket, we had to wait. She got a ticket about 10 o'clock in the morning. He took her driver's license. We had to go down to the Centro to pay the fine. It took till 4 o'clock in the afternoon to get her driver's license to the main office. Now, a lot of people have asked me, okay, well, how do I know when I'm getting bribed or asked for a bribe? What'll normally happen, and this doesn't happen in all cases, and we need to stay away from this. Everybody in Mexico, all the police in Mexico are corrupt. Not all of them are. Actually, my wife was on the phone with me when she had her ticket, and the cop was walking back, and I said, you know what? It's awesome to know that the cops are being right. And all I made a say, it's good that he didn't ask for, and I said mordida. And I was speaking English. He didn't understand. The only word he heard was mordida. He got so upset, he just walked away. But he was actually insulted that I even mentioned the word. And I was even saying that it was good that he didn't ask for one, that he was being honest, because I'm from law enforcement, and it really kills me when I do see corruption. And many people say, well, what do I do if I get stopped? Okay, first of all, a lot of times you will get that one police officer that wants to try to settle this outside, and they'll say, you know, you were doing this, you were doing that, and sometimes maybe you weren't even speeding. And then they'll say, well, you know, I'm going to have to take your driver's license. You're going to have to go down and pay. This happens a lot on the freeway when because they know that you're going to Mexico City and you're in Saltillo, and you're coming down and you don't have time to go the next day to pay the fine. And they'll start saying, you know, we could take care of it here. Not only that, but the fine's 4,000 pesos. They'll make it sound really bad. But if you just give me 500, we can settle that. That is when they're asking you for a bribe. Okay? Now, many people say, what do I do? Do I pay it? Well, what I would do, and this is what I've always said to do is say, okay, I'll take the ticket. I do know a lot of people that, you know, well, there's some people that even carry an extra driver's license, duplicate driver's license from the U.S. and just say, here's my driver's license, give me the ticket. And I will tell you right now that if a cop is corrupt, more than likely, if you keep saying, give me the ticket, give me the ticket, give me the ticket, give me the ticket, and he keeps on insisting that the ticket's going to be a pain in the rear, more than likely, they're not going to want to give you a ticket because they want the easy way out. They want you to give them money. And what I have suggested in some of the cases, because sometimes on the freeway, it's not that safe, not totally safe, and you want to get out of the situation, or you don't want to give up your thing, what we have done, is what I always tell people to do is put 200 pesos in your glove compartment, hide all the rest of the money you might have. Let's say you have 6,000 pesos, you're traveling. And what I would do is just say, look, man, all I have is 200 pesos. Look, here, search my glove. Look, here, open the glove compartment. This is the 200 pesos I have. That's all I have, dude. I'm sorry. More than likely, if he's a corrupt cop's going to say, just give me those 200 pesos and keep going on your way. Now, I'm not telling you to do that. And don't open your glove compartment. But what I'm telling you is if you feel that you're in a situation where you can't get out or the cop's not going to give you a break, that's the last resort. I always say, keep the cops honest here. And you're going to keep them honest if you keep saying, give me a ticket, give me a ticket. They're either going to give you a ticket, which they have to, or they're going to let you go. Okay? So, you know, is it so bad, or is it so bad to lose your driver's license? Yeah, maybe for some people it would be. Now, in our case, we were locally here in San Miguel, so we went down and paid the fine. And let me tell you what the fine was, like 300 pesos. And if a cop's trying to tell you that it's going to cost 2,000 or 3,000, they're exaggerating so that you can give them the 200 pesos. Okay, so that's what you do. Just insist on insist that they have the proof, whatever. And a lot of times if they stopped you because they're just trying to shake you down, they don't have the proof that you were speeding. But that's probably your best thing to do. Don't give a bribe just to give a bribe. Or, you know what? If my wife would have offered that officer some money, the way he reacted when he heard the word mordida, even though I was saying it's awesome that they're honest. You know, I got to say the cops here in San Miguel, they're pretty honest because they're actually the police department here in San Miguel is one of the highest paid police departments in Mexico. So they're not as, I don't know, I'm not saying that the cops don't go out wanting money or whatever, but I'm just saying that they're very honest. And I'm saying it's good to know that they're honest. And I just mentioned the word mordida and I was speaking English. He probably didn't understand my English portion. And well, that's got my wife in trouble. If my wife would have offered him something, it would have been a lot worse. Okay. So if a cop stops you because you're doing something wrong, do not assume that he's wanting a bribe. Do not assume that you didn't do anything wrong. It's just like getting stopped in the United States. You do what you do. You be nice. You be polite. And you don't have to be a jerk. Be polite. Be nice. I'm sorry for speeding, officer. I don't want to, you know what? Give me the ticket. Now, I do know 2 travelers in Mexico got stuck in a situation in an area where I do know for sure that the police will stop you. And if you don't give in to their bribes, they'll call their friends down the road to come and hijack your car or whatever and rob you. They work with the criminals. There's certain areas. Yes, that is true. It is true that some cops are corrupt, but it's true everywhere in the world. You have corruption everywhere. We need to get away from this idea that all law enforcement is corrupt here. As a matter of fact, I was in Cancun not too long ago, and I was talking to somebody, and they were saying, no, I would never live in Mexico because the corruption. And it's like, dude, not everything's corrupt. I'm not saying that, and I even said, and the United States is corrupt too. On all the drug cartel. Yeah, you know what? I just don't live in the area where there's bad drug cartel violence. Just like you wouldn't live in Chicago in certain neighborhoods, right? So that's what we need to get away from. That it's all, um, uh, you know, that type of thing. Stephanie, we got pulled over at the intersection in front of, and actually, that's where my wife got pulled over. Luis told them that they were wrong and asked them to review the video. They did and let him go. And you know what? Luis was probably very nice to the officer. And I know, Stephanie, that he's from here. So he knows how it works here. And he was probably very polite and said, hey, look, man, let's look at the video. I'm sorry. I disagree. If you want to disagree, there's nothing wrong with disagreeing with the cop. And seeing if just don't be rude. I mean, even when I was in the United States, I'd never spent time as a local cop, but I had a lot of coworkers that did, and then moved up into where I was. And they used to say, the minute I approached the vehicle, attitude was everything. If they gave me a bad attitude, I gave them a bad attitude back. If they gave me a good attitude, many times I let them go. So a lot of it has to do with your attitude. And Gringos Russ, exactly what I was saying. He carries 2 wallets. When you're driving between cities, the dummy wallet is about 500 peso, my ID and driver's license, and 1 credit card. The real wallet is in the middle of the car somewhere. The only thing you want to be careful with when it comes to that is not to be carrying large amounts of cash. Only carry whatever you're going to be using to travel. The reason why I say that is there are checkpoints. And if you do get pulled over and they do a full search and they find 50,000 pesos, they're going to say it's illegal, illicit money. Now, if you go and you take 5,000 or 6,000 and say, hey, I just hit it because I don't want to get robbed or whatever, they don't care. They're only looking for like hundreds and thousands of pesos or millions of pesos. So I would be careful if you're transporting a large quantity of money. And most of us don't have that large quantity of money that they're looking for, but that's the big thing. Yes, and he was very polite, but I was amazed that they could do that right away. San Miguel's got a little bit more of a better system. And then not only that, but too, if you put the cop on, you know what? I'll tell you what, I don't agree that I was, I'm sorry, hey, look, I understand if I was, can we see your radar? Can we see how fast I was really going? Most cops, if they do clock you at a speeding speed, they're going to actually have it registered. If a cop's stopping you because he just wants to shake you down, he's going to refuse to show you the meter. He's not going to want to see the meter. Or he may even, if you say, hey, let me see the radar meter, he might even say, you know what, you just go ahead and go, because he already knows that he stopped you and you really weren't speeding. When you put a cop on a spot like that here, they're not going to go out of their way. Maybe at one time in the history of Mexico it was that way, but it's not that way now. And most police departments are getting a lot more professional now. Most police departments in expat areas or immigrant areas like Puerto Vallarta, San Miguel de Allende, Cancun, they deal with foreigners all the time. So they're going to be less likely to be sitting there and wanting something. Now, the Cancun police are very famous for trying to shake people down, but a lot of times you got to understand the people that they shake down are people that are drunk, they're wasted, they don't know any better. And then you have cops that are just like that. But can I say that all Cancun cops will do that? No. So, I want to think that my brethren here in Mexico are honest and hardworking people. And I've worked with a lot of law enforcement here, and they are honest and hardworking. And they really do want to make a difference, especially in the areas that I did investigations in. They really wanted to make a difference. And even politically, sometimes they would tell me, look, I'm going to, just between you and me, I'm going to tell you the truth. So many of them are very honest. So don't go thinking And the problem that we have here is that a lot of times we try to adopt, and this goes back to the culture thing. We try to bring our culture here to Mexico, or expect the culture here in Mexico to work the same way as it works back in our home country. And that's not the way it works. And it's not just the culture, it's the government processes. I did this last live that I did. I talked about how there's many processes about the consistency of being inconsistent. Because you go one place, this is the way it works. You go another place, that's the way it works. So, we really need to look at that in that light. Your lives are very brilliant and very helpful. Thank you, Ana. I appreciate that. Anybody else? Ana, my son and his friend got corrupt cops in Cancun. And you know what? It's usually the tourist police. I'll be honest with you. And usually most people in Cancun, you're drinking. I'm not saying I do, but there's a lot of people that go there, get blastedly drunk, and they're perfect, how would you say, victims for that type of corruption or whatever, because half the time you don't even know probably even not only that are you a victim to police, but you're a victim to a criminal, and you could get robbed. Why? Because you're drunk, and they know you're drunk, and they know you're wasted, and they're gonna just take advantage of that. And that's where I see cops, and even and here's the thing, even if you have a cop that's corrupt, okay, or what you want to call corrupt, and that actually giving you stuff and everything, not giving you stuff, but wanting to take money from you. If you put him on the spot and you tell him to be honest, okay, and you say, I want the ticket, give me the ticket. Give me the ticket. Give me the ticket. Many times he's going to be honest and say, okay, I'm going to give you the ticket. Hey, and you know what? That also helps to keep corruption. You don't, how would you say, memorialize corruption here? Okay? By not assuming and by telling the guy you need to be honest, that is you doing your part to make it right and not have corruption. Okay? That's how you prevent corruption. Okay, even here. So, okay, let me see here. I went to Bosco and TJ trying to buy silver Libertas. They didn't have any, and it didn't seem like it was regularly available. Where can I get Libertas at a decent price? Actually, Alan, I'm not too sure. I know what you're talking about. It's the silver coins. They're 9.25 ounces. Actually, the banks are the ones that usually have them. What I would do, Alan, is maybe go to the other banks like BBVA. I don't know if they still carry them that common, if they're that common. I do know some places in Mexico that deal a lot in silver will sell them. But you're not going to get a decent price because they're selling them, on the market to make a profit. I'm not too familiar. I wish I had that answer for you, Alan. But that's basically, and here's exactly what my wife said. Actually, the officer was really nice. The process was fast, and the ticket cost less than 500 pesos. And all we had to do is go to the Centro to pay it. Okay, we went and had lunch. Nothing, no big deal. Yeah, they took 2,000 pesos. Well, I'm not, like I said, you're going to find that in tourist areas. And here's the other thing too, that I'm going to also tell you, happy birthday. Thanks, Lamden. Thanks on behalf of my wife. But one of the things that we need to understand is that also police departments, well, like I told you, we're getting a lot more professional. A lot of them have body cams. I do know of one story that a friend of ours was telling us, is they got stopped in Baja, and the cop And they were trying to give like a, let's take care of this. And the cop was like, no, no. He had a body cam on. So you got to remember the police departments are getting more professional down here in Mexico, especially in the tourist areas or in the, like in Baja, in San Miguel de Allende. I've seen the cops, the state, or even then here in the state of Guanajuato, they all carry body cameras now. So a lot of it has to do with their safety. So it's very, it's getting harder and harder for a police officer to take money. Okay. Does it exist? It exists everywhere. Let me tell you something. I can tell you from personal experience in the United States, because we like to pride ourselves in the United States that we're not corrupt. I'm going to tell you what, where I worked in several areas, let me put it this way. We had a lot of investigations on corrupt local law enforcement that were taking money to let loads come across. We're not only talking about local, but even federal, even on the federal level. I've been involved in several investigations on police officers, state officers, and federal officers in the United States. And actually, when it came to doing narcotics, we had a lot of investigations on those people. So it's not just a Mexico problem. It's everywhere in the world. Yeah. And exactly that happened to Anivet and Arlene in San Luis. She ran a light and didn't want to, they weren't from San Luis, and they didn't want to return to San Luis to get their license and everything else. So they kept offering the money. And what exactly did Gringos R? It's just right here that the officer reluctantly took the money. He didn't want to take the money. Okay, so we need to get that out of our minds that everybody's corrupt here. And I hate to say it, but, you know, that's the public image that we like to, I guess, project in the United States because we want to make Mexico look like they're the evil people that are sending drugs into our, and they're corrupt and the government's corrupt. And you know what? I see just as much corruption over there as I do over here. It's just a different kind of corruption. And even what's going on now politically, and I'm not talking about the president, I'm talking about Congress not standing up and doing a lot of things. More than likely, they're not standing up because there's corruption and they have something to hide. So it's no different. And you know, a politician is a politician. I don't care if you're from the United States or you're from Mexico. There's corruption to be had. And maybe the corruption's different. Maybe it's insider training over there versus, I don't know, taking a kickback over here. But it's no different. We need to understand that. We can't put ourselves above anybody else. And one of the things that, like I said, we need to remember that if anything, and all of these rumors that are going on. And yeah, maybe it could happen. Maybe, I don't know, if the United States were to invade Mexico and they were to say, we need to kick out all the Americans. I don't know. Maybe that's possible. Anything's possible. And actually, I used to say this, when you used to go to court, there's a big trick the attorneys use, okay, is an attorney will ask you a question, and he automatically, it's a trick question, and it's very commonly used to try to jack up witnesses. But they'll say, is it possible that my client didn't do it? Well, anything's possible, right? So if you say, no, it's not possible, whoa, you're lying, because anything's possible, right? You just lied. Okay, that's how they try to catch you in the lie. You know how I used to answer that question? Anything's possible, but the odds of, yeah, you know what? Anything's possible. Maybe it's possible that your client was innocent, but the odds of winning the lottery are better than the possibilities of your client being, and they would just stop. And that's the way I would answer it. So anything's possible, And my name, yes, in the U.S. we call corruption lobbying. That's one of the things I was going to say. Sometimes we make corruption legal in the United States. So that's where we have to be very careful. Anything's possible. Could the United States invade Mexico? Oh, it's possible. I mean, but is it going to happen? There's a difference between what's possible and what's going to happen. That's why I have my channel, is so that you can know the facts. If for whatever reason, when they do start requiring visas, I'll be the first to let you know. If for whatever reason Mexico wants to kick out all the U.S. citizens, I will let you know. But until it's official, and I always say this here in Mexico, nothing's official until it's official. Okay? So, even if you heard a rumor that they're going to get rid of, and I will talk about rumors. Yeah, there's a rumor that the regularization program is not going to stick around. But I stick to the facts. If it's still around, I'm going to tell you it's still around. You know what? The regularization program was supposed to go away 2 years ago. I mean, from my actual contact with actual Mexican officials telling me that it was going to go away. But what happened? It didn't become official. The officers were still given the opportunity to keep it alive, and it's still alive today. And we have to see every 6 months if it's going to keep going. So. In Coahuila, Klepper. I'm not very familiar with Melchor in Coahuila, Mosquis. I'm not very familiar with that area. You're in the north, up towards the border. Coahuila is a kind of a different area of Mexico. It is a border. It borders the U.S. And that state, it's kind of weird because I tell people not to go through Nuevo Laredo when they're traveling, especially now. I even just advised a friend of mine, don't go, because there's a lot of problems going on in Nuevo Laredo right now. And I tell people to go through Eagle Pass. That's in the state of Coahuila. I don't know how far this is from the border, the place you're telling me about, Klepper, and welcome, by the way. I don't know about the place you're telling me about. I don't know the reputation. There are some places that are very good in the, how would I say? There's some places that are okay to live on the border. I don't know how far in it is in Coahuila. I do know that Coahuila is a little bit safer than Tamaulipas and the neighboring states and Nuevo Leon. But I couldn't tell you, to be honest with you. If anybody else has some experience there, I don't want to tell you that it's okay, because a lot of the border cities in Coahuila it's a border. You have what goes on in the border, regardless. I think when you're traveling from the United States to Mexico, your biggest obstacle is going across the border and getting to the interior of Mexico. Now, of course, there is parts in the interior of Mexico you don't want to go. But like I said, there are some pretty nice places. If it's on the border, I would be a little bit wary. TJ, I do know a lot of people live in TJ and go back and forth to San Diego because it's cheaper to live there. But at the same time, TJ has its risks. I wouldn't really deem any border city safe. As a foreigner living there, as an American living in that area. If you go a little bit further in, Monterrey is a big city. It's dangerous, but I mean, we live there. It just all depends. There's places like Saltillo, which is in Nuevo Leon, it's a lot of people live there very peacefully. So it just all depends. Let's see here. I'm almost It's in the free zone along the border. Yeah, it's in the free zone. Okay, I don't know exactly where it is, but if it's close, if it's within 20 kilometers of the border, I would be a little bit wary. If it's in the free zone, uh, I would be a little bit. And Roberto travels in and out. What about San Luis? San Luis is it's close to here. We know a lot of people that live in San Luis, and San Luis is a pretty decent area. Of course, as with any city, even San Miguel de Allende, I would do my research on what are the good neighborhoods and the bad neighborhoods. But San Luis is a big city. Actually, San Luis is one of the places that I even suggest people stop for a pit stop whenever they're coming through here. Gringos R Us San Luis is wonderful. And actually, Roberto, Gringos R Us actually spent some time in San Luis. It's a very nice place to live. And there is a foreign community in San Luis. And you're also close to everything. Here, you're close to Mexico City. You're close to San Miguel de Allende. You're in the central part of the Mexico. Okay, south of Piedras Negras. Okay. Let me. Thank you so much. Actually, Klepper, you probably will be okay. I'm trying to see. Let me look up on Google Maps. Let me see here. And we'll do that. And then I'm going to have to go because I'm going to cut. I always try to cut it off, but I don't want to go without. Okay. Oh, okay. Let me see here. I'm finding it here in Coahuila. Okay. Yeah, I see where Nova Rosita is. Let me go up out a little bit. Actually, yeah, you're south of Piedras Negras. Piedras Negras is what borders Eagle Pass, and you're still. I've heard Monclava's pretty decent, Saltillo's pretty decent. You're probably a little bit. And I'm found it here, but let me go into my maps here. It's right here. You're still kind of close to the border, and you're still kind of close to Piedras Negras. Piedras Negras it's how would I say? It's a good place to cross, but it's not necessarily a good place to live. The places that you would probably want to be in is more towards Saltillo. Monclava is also very, very popular, and Torreon is also very, very popular in Coahuila. I would say you're still in this in Musquis. In Musquis, you're still a little bit close to, a little bit maybe too close to the border, for my liking. That's just my opinion. I'll tell you what, Klepper, the best thing to do if you know other people that are living in that area, get their opinion. I mean, my opinion is just from looking on a map. Okay, so it's not, and it's within the free zone. Yeah, and Gringos are about 40 kilometers southwest of Piedras Negras. I would, like I said, Piedras Negras probably has a lot of activity at night. It's an okay place to cross during the day. It's probably safer than crossing in Nuevo Laredo, and it's safer than crossing in Nuevo Laredo, and it's also safer than crossing the Columbia Bridge in Nuevo Laredo. But with that being said, that doesn't mean there's not activity on the border. I would say you're too close to the border, too close for comfort. I would probably go all the way down to Saltillo if you're really looking for a place close. to the States and a place close to Texas, your best bet is Saltillo if you don't want to live in Monterrey, of course, or Torreon. Torreon is also a pretty decent place to live. So hopefully that hopefully that answers your question. So now I've been on an hour and 24 minutes. I always try to keep it an hour. I always go over. Thank you very much for coming. Next week we won't have a live because I will be on the road. I will be out of town unless I can somehow broadcast from wherever I'm at. And the following weekend, I should have a live. On Tuesday, I come back on Monday, not this Monday, but the following Monday. And Tuesday, I get a tooth extraction that I need to have done. So I'm not sure what kind of shape I'm going to be in. But I'd like to thank all of you for coming here. Like I said, you guys are the best. I can't ask for a better audience. And thank you guys for sticking with me. I know I'm not doing a lot of videos. I'm not your typical YouTuber in the sense of putting out videos every week. I was before. I've just gone through some changes in life, but I still want to be available to help you out. I can still do my free consultations. I'm still available as long as it's on my time. I have a calendar, a scheduling app where I put my available hours and I can give you an hour of my time. If you have more questions, I'm here to help. That's the purpose of this channel. It's not to be, not to compete with other YouTube channels or not to be, it's to give you guys all the information that you need to either move or travel to Mexico. And thank you, everyone. Thanks for, and like I said, thanks for answering the questions. If I don't have answers to the questions, I've always been able to rely on my community to give their experience and their answers and how they're affected, so that you're not only getting it from me, you're getting it from the community too. Klepper, if you have a lot of questions, before I go, if you do have questions and want a 1 hour consultation, it could be anything from how do I buy a house to what are the best routes to travel? I've had people tell me, okay, I'm going to make a trip. What are the best routes to travel? I'll try to help you the best I can. I do it for free. I don't try to sell you anything. It's not a catch to get you into buying something. I do it totally for free. All you have to do is send an email to info@retiredlifeinmexiconobull.com. The email address is info@retiredlifeinmexiconobull.com. All one word. And I will send you a link back. There has been some instances. I know some people that I have actually done consultations with here that are in this group here. They can tell you that sometimes it takes me a week to get back or whatever, depending on how I'm doing. But the only requirement that I have is that I have the time to do it. For example, if I'm out of town next weekend, I always do it I usually save it for Saturdays or Sundays during the day. That's what day I put aside for consultations. And if I'm available that Sunday, if I'm not available to the following Sunday, I'll just send you a link and I have a scheduling calendar that you can sign up. So if you have a lot more questions, Klepper, and like I said, maybe this live streams aren't good enough to answer all your questions, then schedule a consultation and I'll be happy to help you. I don't charge. I know other people do, but I'm almost sure the information that I give you is going to be the same as that anybody that you pay. And it's, I do it as a public service. And the only thing I require is that I have time to do it and that you have enough patience that if you can't have it done tomorrow, then if you have to wait a week or 2 weeks, that you're willing to schedule it later on. Or I have had some issues that we're leaving tomorrow. I need some help. If it is an emergency situation, I will try my best to help. But if I can't, I can't. That's the catch. Because everything has a catch, right? All right. Well, like I said, thank you for joining me. And until next time, hopefully in 2 weeks, until next time, like I always say, stay safe and stay informed.